Okay, well, they're switching it on me. I thought Brent was going to say a little something first. So, first of all, good morning, and thank you all for coming. And
Yeah, there's a light right
There we go.
This is good.
Yeah.
All right.
I know, but we took it.
Oh, okay. I'm getting it now. Okay, got it.
There.
All right. So, that. You happy now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, this Big Magic Show, this is the first time we've ever done anything like this. And we've actually learned a few things about how to do something like this. And it all started with Brent, who most of you probably know. This is his community, and he loves this. He's just, well, he's all about love, right? So that's Brent, right? And it was his idea to get this show put together, and it wouldn't be here without him. But even prior to that, so what I love about this show actually is that a lot of times you'll go to an opening and it's about the artist and their work, okay? This is about the kiln and the community that it creates, okay? And so that's really kind of how Diana and I, like when we first started talking about doing this, it was the idea behind it, but you never really know what's going to happen. And so I guess that's what I'm going to talk about. It is from the perspective of the kiln and what that has created and everything. So it all started, and I've got, hold on, I put my glasses away. I got to find the button. There we go. So this is actually my favorite image that has ever been taken. It's that's Chantel. She's one of the leaders in Big Magic, and someone just shot a picture of her in there as this no-name potter standing in their kiln and thinking about what to do next, kind of thing. That's kind of how it feels to me. So basically, what I'm going to talk about is the kiln, and we're going to start out with just some construction and things like that. But before we do get there, I want to take you back a little bit, and because we didn't start here. We could go way back, but I'm not going to go back to when I was in my 20s and I built a origami and all that kind of stuff. But I was in a newer studio that I had built with my family, and Brian Horsch came to visit me and brought some students from KU. They wanted to come down and see the studio and everything like that. And at the time, I only had a gas kiln, and it would go fire up to about 4 feet tall. And when I moved to this new studio, I'm like, that's as big as I want to get until I build an origami. And Brian asked me about that. I shared that with him that I wasn't building a bigger kiln until I built one. And so he's just like, well, you need a partner. And yeah, sure. And he's like, no, we should talk. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. And so he leaves, and he's like, I'm going to give you a call when I get home, and we'll set up a time to talk. And I'm like, yeah, sure, thanks for coming in, and didn't think anything would come of it. And 45 minutes later, I get a call on the phone. That Saturday we met, and he's all in. And so Brian, who couldn't be here for the meeting, he's got a couple of pieces around he does the bison and the longhorn. Is a huge part of how this origami was built. People don't like to share numbers; they think it's crass or something like that. But I actually think it's actually important to have an understanding of what it takes. And when people ask us about this, just the raw materials to build this is probably about $75,000. And Brian's put in at least half that much, if not a little bit more, and other things around the edges. I've been rat holing, saving bricks, saving just everything. Diana can attest to it. Piles of this, pallets of that, for most of my life as a potter. And that was the other half. And that doesn't include any of our labor. That's just the stuff, materials to build the things, probably 75 grand. including what you see right here, this beginning of we broke ground. It'll be October 1st, 5 years coming up. We start this project. So the rectangle that you see right there is we got two images. You got the before and the after with the pour. That's where the kiln actually sits, is on that particular pad. I wanted to have free floating from the rest of the slab. And so we're just going to kind of get to see a little bit its footprint in the big loop we have that will be ongoing for the entire show. There's 700 images. These are within it, but these have been condensed down so we don't have to see 700 images this morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So just a little bit about kind of going along and building this thing up. People ask me about, where'd you get the design and this and that. And the thing is, kilns are actually pretty simple structures. This is really kind of a nice image right here. And so you can kind of see it starting to take shape, all right? Now, an onigama, does anybody know the definition of onigama? So, potters in our country love to say Japanese words and call their words Japanese words because it makes them feel like potters, okay? And in Japan, onigama, it's a Japanese word. Ana means cave, okay? And gama means kiln. And so that's all they're saying is cave kiln. Okay? If we call it a cave kiln, it would be the exact same thing that they're calling it when they say onigama. But onigama just sounds good. Okay, so that's what we say. So we're essentially building a long chamber. Okay, it's very cave-like when you're in there. And as opposed to, like for instance, a naborigama is the kinds that you see that go up the kiln. It just means nabora means climbing. And so it's just a different kind of kiln. And it's a big open space. It's about, the apex is right about here at this. This is the first side stoke area, and it's 6 feet wide and 6'5" tall to the peak of the arch. So this is Brian, by the way, his wife Marilyn. And so we've just got some images. Some of them kind of go chronological, some of them don't. And so this is kind of gives you that sense of that cave, okay, and what it's like. And there's a lot of, I don't know if it's myth or if it's actually real, that this teardrop shape actually enhances the flame and the flame path through the work and through the kiln. I don't know if it's true or not. You have to build 20 of these and test each one and just try to decide, I'm probably going to build one in my life. Okay, and we're done. Okay, and Diana's probably thinking, yeah, we're done. And so, I built a pretty much teardrop shape. Okay, and so when I'm asked about, how do you design this, it's like, there's a lot of things that you learn in life by, sitting down and studying and doing books and this and that. But I've been making pots for 40 years, and you learn a lot of stuff through osmosis and just being in the realm of being a potter with other potters in other kilns, talking about things, seeing other things, and then also the fact that these are pretty simple structures. Okay. You got heat at one end, you got a chimney at the other end, and you got to get the flame to move out, okay? And building an arch, this is I call it a half cap. So a cantonary arch, is everybody familiar? It's a self-supporting arch, okay? And it's created by its own weight. And you hang a bead, like a bead chain is the perfect way to do it. And say, if you want a 6 foot tall arch, you do a 6 foot wide space, you let the chain hang down, spray some paint over the top of it, pull your chain away, and you have a perfectly scribed cantonary arch. Flip it upside down, put your bricks on it, and they will stand without mortar, okay? A Roman arch is basically a half of a sphere, okay? Just a perfect curve. And what we did is we took a cantonary line and then a Roman arch, and we went right in the middle. So I'm calling it a half cap. And it sits on top of a stub wall. Can I get it to go? Oh, I'm scared. The first image I showed up with the footprint and the straight wall that comes back, that's just built up to that point, and then the arch sits on that. All right. And so what you do is you just measure your width, and then you just do the math for how tall that arch is going to be at that point. Okay, and that gave us our 6'5" in the middle, and then so everywhere you go back, it starts to narrow and narrow and narrow, so the arch starts coming down, and then the floor starts coming up to meet. And the floor coming up helps because it gets your heat not having to go down as far. Heat rises, right? And so we're trying to go with the flame and encourage the flame to actually move in a non-restricted manner through the kiln as possible. So you have all these things in your imagination when you're drawing this out. You've got your graph paper and your pencil. I'm not a computer guy that much, okay? If I was 30 years younger, I'd have been doing this in CAD probably, but I'm not. And so I got my graph paper out, my great big sheets, and I'm doing all kinds of drawing for days. And that's just kind of, the kiln starts to build itself. When you have these parameters, what is an arch? How big do you want it to be? The shape starts to take its own form, and it's kind of comforting in a way that it can do that. And so I've got some images here of you get to these points, and so the entire building process started at October 1st. That was breaking ground. Okay, so we're building the building and everything like that, trying to get things started. We've got the kiln going. Don't even have a roof yet, but it's kind of all coming together at once, kind of flying the plane and building it at the same time. And our first firing was February 10th. So it took us pretty much up to that point. It was about almost a 5-month project to do this. So you start to see things like this, and it's like, man, this is getting real. And it was pretty cool, getting to this point, getting the first, stucco skin on. This is a guy sitting welding up the door. A few things had to be adjusted later on, and this is one of those things. This is kind of an aerial shot. The Quonset hut is my barn, which my studio is in the second half of it. That's 100 feet by 60, for some perspective. The kiln shed, the red roof is 40 by 40. And here it is. Just a year ago, June, we finally got the last skin on. You get to the point where you got a kiln and you can fire pots, so we're going to fire pots. And so on February 10th, we started doing it, and then we kept going, and we never really got it finished. And we, as a leadership, so let me back up just a hair. So what we created though is we got. Brian and I had that first conversation, we get all that going, and we get this thing built, and it's like, how are we going to run this? How is this going to work? And so what we decided to do is we wanted to bring some people together that were invested and involved. And some had a lot of experience, some had some experience, but people that we felt like we could work with. And so we have 6 people that we are the leaders around the kiln. And it's Brian, we got Keith Knowles, Chantel Wright, Kathy Browski sitting right there too, and then Diana sitting right next to her. And we meet, and like after every firing, we'll have a meeting, and we go over what's been done, and we talk about why things happen a certain way, what we think we can do to improve, and we develop a plan for the next firing. Okay, and that way, and we work by consensus. Robert's rules, they might get stuff done, but they don't always get the right thing done. And so we work by consensus because it's a better way to come to a decision. Sometimes you have to defer to people that really want to try something, or they really think this is right, and you can't really say that it's not, and so let's give it a try. And so we're doing a whole firing, 1,000 pots, and let's see if this works. Okay, and so we've done 12. Is it 12, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
12 firings. We're still learning the kiln. Our first firing up until our 12th firing was our best firing. And then it's like, there's always this moment I feel like, the whole thing with Brian coming there, and I guess, things happen because people make decisions, but also things happen because they're supposed to. And this is one of those things that I feel like it was supposed to happen, and the timing was right, and everything just kind of came together. So I'm thinking about three things at one time in my life, and I'm here in my mind, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So anyway, the decision-making process works that way with us, and so we're trying to come to that firing then with a goal, all right, and to carry out that goal, make sure it works, and then and then it's like yes or no. Sometimes it's the wrong way. And that first firing, there was like I feel like sometimes there's inspiration. It comes from, it's like angels behind you, and they're flapping their wings and they're giving you help, and you're getting this impulse from the spiritual world, and it's kind of pushing you along, and then you get it, and you get bit, okay, and you are now inspired, and then they fly away. Like, work on that for a while. And so our second firing was one of our worst, because we made some changes. Oh, let's do this, let's make it better. And we went the other way. And then we kind of had to work our way back. And so there's this whole thing about, how is this kiln going to teach us how to work together? How is this kiln going to show us how it wants to be fired? Okay, it's bigger than us, and it decides how it wants to be fired. So we just got some images here. This is the inspiration behind the name. And when we were building the kiln, Stephen Hill actually was having a discussion with Diana at an art fair and suggested reading this book. And were you reading it or were you listening?
No, he just suggested that I read it. He was surprised that I hadn't read it.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
told me to read it.
Yeah. So she's reading it, and she's like, you need to read this. Well, I don't read because I don't have time to sit down and read. So I listen to stuff. So we got the book on audio and we're listening to it, and it is phenomenal. Okay. This woman speaks about the creative process and what it feels like better than anybody I've heard talk about it. And as creators, you resonate with what she's saying. I can't say it as well as what she says. And so I really encourage it. And so we were listening to this as we're building the kiln, and that's how the kiln got its name, which is from the original inspiration of Elizabeth Gill. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and so some of you are probably more familiar with that. Bestseller for decades or whatever. But that's where the name came from. I highly recommend getting the audio version of the book. She reads it herself, and she's delightful to listen to as well. So this is kind of a side. You don't normally see the side view, and before it got its last, color code to make it look all, cool. And so, technically speaking, this is in Novoragama, okay, because this is a soda kiln, and this is what we call a vapor kiln. Now, I just call it that because that's what I feel like it does. So it's got two other chambers after it also. And so in that second chamber, that soda kiln, all we ever do is put soda in it. We don't put any wood in it. It fires to 12, usually by itself, without doing anything. Occasionally, the vapor kiln has gotten to cone 14. If you're not familiar with what cone equivalents are, generally speaking, so if you look at the kiln from here, we're about 13 here, which is probably about a little over 2,400 degrees, just a touch. The bulk of the kiln is cone 11, which is right just under 24. We have struggled right here with even getting 9 down sometimes, and then it comes through here. Some kind of magic happens, we can't figure it out. It goes to 12, which is about 120 degrees hotter. and then about 30 degrees hotter here in cone 14. So it has to do with that tip of the flame. It's actually supposed to be the hottest part, and we can't seem to get it to tickle that spot back there, but we can hit those other ones pretty good. So I'm still learning the kiln. And from this point on, it's that's Herrick. Actually, he was a former apprentice years ago. Just got images of the inside of the kiln, and I'm going to just kind of pop through these pretty quickly because they're also in the loop. And this is our second or third firing, I believe. That's a nice glow. That was obviously a February firing. We've had a couple. Our very first firing, the first 2 nights were 10 degrees, and God bless the people that were on the night shift. I wasn't on it, and so I was really happy. And the kiln's not giving off much love at that point. Okay, it's not hot yet. Okay, at the very first of the firing, so it was 10 degrees, and it was a cold kiln. You know, still coming up in temperature.
Coldest my feet has ever been.
We bought that online just while we're sitting around freezing. Got it delivered the next day, and so that was helpful a little bit. Yeah, it's cold. And some images here just of what it's like. If you haven't participated or gone and visited, you're welcome to come up during a firing, okay? It's absolutely wonderful to be a part of the experience. Throw some wood in the kiln, get burnt a little bit. You can get burnt, okay? It's when you open this thing, when you open that door at when it's at temperature, okay? You will, if you were standing where that back wall is, you can feel it, okay? And if you're within, 8-foot radius, it can, even like in the warmer, when you're in the summer, it's actually a little uncomfortable. Stoking can hurt, and it's kind of cool, actually. So it's intense. And we have a couch that comes down. It's kind of ceremonial. To lower the couch after the kiln is loaded, and then it gets raised up after the firing. It's just one of those funny things that you just.
The picture on the right was our first firing, and they were having a little meeting, and they're trying to, go, okay, what can we change? What can we do?
Yeah.
It was.
And plus, we were like, that was like after, building the whole thing, all the ideas, everything, and the dang thing worked, okay? And we're just sitting there just like, is a warm kiln, felt good, just everything
But
worked.
don't let him fool you. It was very, very, very stressful.
You should tell the story about the couple that are sitting on the couch.
Oh, so this is Matt and Alexandria, okay? And Alexandria had taken a workshop from me years and years ago, and they first met at a big magic firing, and got together, and probably a year and a half later, he proposed to her in the kiln. Just not that long ago, and Alexandria is due to have their first baby here in about 3 weeks. About 4 weeks, yeah. So that was kind of fun. That was just like, when was it just, that was like a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's first. Yeah, that happened. There's Keith and Chantel, a couple of leaders. So the way we kind of got it broke down right now is that we've got these 6 people that are in the leadership, and then we've got other people that you can sign up, or there's all kinds of different ways to participate in the firing. And we've always got a leader on a shift, and then either 1 or 2 other people, stokers, coming along. And then that way, as long as there's a leader on the shift, then you know that there's always that idea of how we're going to fire the kiln and making sure that everything is getting done according to our plan, so that when we get to the end of the firing, we actually know what we did. And we keep, every hour, we're writing down every single temperature. We've got thermocouples in 4 different places. And so there's temperature readings, there's, we're looking at cones. And so the firings last, our longest one was 146 hours, which is just about 6 full days. Our shortest is about 96. We're trying to land right in that 100 to 110 is we're finding is about the right amount of time. And but every single firing gets graphed, every single area is taken down in, on the hour of detail. There's my fish. Lots of pictures. Digital cameras really make it possible to see a lot of different things. And this image on the right is, I'm talking about trying to get it technical. It's like this is one of the, we've got different stacks. There's 5 stacks, and then we've got the front part of the kiln, and it's kind of turned into stack 6 and 7 as well. And the best firing that we did, what we did is we went back, measured out every single thing from the images, and made Alex, who's an apprentice with me right now, made a CAD drawing of all of different. So we've got all these different stacks that we can try to replicate. How you stack a kiln when it's this big and there's this much air moving through it affects the firing. Okay, and so we're trying to replicate how the kiln fired the best. And we'll make some adjustments once in a while depending upon things, but you got to think about the airflow, the mass that's there. I mean, all the different things when you're loading. And so it's like, sometimes people think about art in a romantic way. And, just feel it or just do it and all these different things. But there's a craft to everything. Even if you're a 2-dimensional painter, and you want to mix 2 colors, that's physics. That's not art. Okay, that is you add 2 things together and you get this other thing. Okay, and so that's a craft. And knowing how to do different things like that, and this craft element allows you to then it frees your imagination and it allows you to create at a different level than if you don't understand the craft and the medium that you're working with. And so I try to put as much science and technical stuff behind it and in everything that we do is so that we can actually make decisions so that all the effort that we put into everything actually kind of comes out the way we want to. A lot more images. We've had different people.
That was our first fire on the
states.
left.
What's that?
That was our first fire on the left.
Yeah. We got that's Adam. He's from Michigan. Matt in the kiln. He's out in Salt Lake City now, or something like that. Other people come from Denver, Arkansas.
We were talking last night about how many people we thought it was fire. There's 17 of us here with pots in the show.
Yeah.
Danny says over 50.
I'm just saying
guessing
over 50.
Probably
50, 60, 70 people have come through, one fire.
From all over the nation too, because it rents out space, so.
Yeah. So, this was we had a St. Louis contingent with us there for a while, and they kind of backed off. I like this image. Gosh, it kind of catches the feeling of when that sucker's hot. Okay. So I don't even know how we're doing on. I don't even watch.
You're doing good on time.
Okay.
Yeah, you're doing good on time.
Okay, good. All right.
Incidentally, talk a little bit about fly ash and what it actually does and how it lands on the pots to create.
Okay, thank you. So I was going to say, if there's any questions, just like jump in right as we're going. I'm totally good with that. Okay, this piece here, all right? So if you're not familiar with the wood firing process, okay, this is a really good example, all right? right here is raw clay, all right? And it's not even shiny, all right? And then it starts to, you'll sometimes get this halo around this point where the kiln, the atmosphere wasn't getting to it very much at all. And then it starts to get shiny, and then here's where the more of the ash was hitting, okay? So when you look at this piece, the flame is probably set up right about like that. Firebox is here, chimney's over here, okay? And so it's rushing past this point, and the ash is actually starting to build up on this piece. And about cone 9, we're talking about like 2,300 degrees. These things are starting to get sticky, okay? And the ash is starting to stick to them. And so, but a vertical surface, it's not going to stick to it as easily as the more horizontal that you get. And so a lot of times you'll see, it can be beautiful to see a piece that has no texture on it at all, and you can just see it perfectly wrap around. But then also texture is really kind of cool because it can start to pick it up and help the ash stick to it. And so that's what's going on here, is that fly ash is going through the kiln. It's 40% calcium, and calcium is a really powerful flux. And when it mixes with, it starts to hit the clay body, it's going to mix with the aluminum and silica. It starts to make its own glaze, starts to build up, starts to run down. The surface tension in calcium is really high, and so it causes it to pull towards itself and bead. And that's where you'll get this beading effect at these runs. And so it's kind of cool to understand the chemistry of everything that's going on as well. And so and then also with this, this is a higher iron body that when you get the ash landing on it, and especially oak ash tends to turn this amber color. And that's what was hitting this off. But the iron sets it off also and brightens it a little bit more. This clay body here is a very low iron body. And so when you see the ash hitting it, it's not going to go to that amber quite as easily and have that really big contrast. It doesn't go as deep in the gray and it doesn't go as deep in the amber, but the iron helps sets it off. And so that chemistry, how just the clay body that you choose makes a really big difference. The kind of wood that you're putting in the kiln. We're almost to the point now. The spring storms have knocked down a lot of oak trees on my property, and we've just built a new woodshed, which actually isn't in the images. We're able to put 2.5 years of firing. Sorry, not 2.5 firings, which is basically almost a full year of wood under roof. It's good to have your wood dry for split, stacked, and dried for a year, so that you're not throwing water in your kiln, and cooling it off as you're going. So we're still growing, actually. Hopefully we're getting close to being done. But we're just now to the point where we can actually start to separate our wood and not just have cordwood going in, but decide what kind of wood is going in. And finishing the kiln with oak is actually one of my biggest goals, is being able to use that not only for the density and the BTU, but for the color effect that you get on the wood when it's actually starting to stick and build up. And that's another one of my favorite images. So the one previous, they're actually stoking. This is where we're looking in the kiln trying to see the cones, okay? And so we got goggles on here trying to just see, and I didn't have face mask on, and so because it kind of can make it difficult, and you're looking into white light, okay? And you're trying to pick out these cones, and they're going to be sitting in there like this, and they're formulated to melt at a specific heat work, okay? So temperature doesn't have to get as hot if it's hot for a long time. And so these cones, they'll start to melt, and so we've got all these digital things telling us what our temperature is, but it's not a true temperature relative to what the clay is experiencing. Because heat over time affects you. It's no different than yourself. Heat work actually affects your body. Where if you're doing a strenuous exercise when it's hot out, and the time actually wears you out, okay? It's the same with the clay. And the time actually can mature the clay at a lower temperature than if you went fast with a really high temperature. So these cones will start to melt, and we're trying to see the cones into the white light and the heat coming back. So I'm getting as low as I can so that when the heat comes out, it's going over me. And so I just think that's a cool picture too, because it's hot. Yeah, there's rules around even stoking. Doesn't matter how hot, I don't care if it's 100 degrees outside. Long sleeves, natural fibers only. You can melt your clothes to your body when you're stoking. If you're wearing all the plastic clothes that we have nowadays, it's got cotton's the best. You can wear wool if you want, but I recommend cotton. There's the cones over there on the side. And so that's a good image of them. Nothing's melting right now, okay? And you got cones going this way, you got cones going this way. And so this is our low pack right here. So that right there is probably a cone 06 or something like that, which is right around 1800. So we're probably close to 1800 degrees at this point. So it's pretty easy to see them right now. When you get that white light and they're just surrounded in that heat, they're really tough to see. And that's just kind of our last image and kind of a nice, that's how it feels when you look at it. I like that spot shot as well. So, if you have any other questions, just feel free.
Well, tell about stoke cycles, like, so we get towards the end of the fire and we put wood in it, like paragraph.
Okay. When we begin, we brick up the door on Monday, and I'll put a propane burner in that thing, and it's actually really difficult to warm a kiln up slowly with wood. It really wants to take off. A lot of places they're purists and they don't want to use any gas. They'll actually build a fire on the outside of the kiln and let that heat just come through. If you get it on the inside, you can blow up water. If you got green pots in there, you can blow those up. So I'll use propane and we'll get it up to about 350 degrees by about midnight, and then I'll go down and I'll kind of start babying it, make sure everything's okay. I'll stoke a little bit and kind of slowly take over the stoking and make sure it doesn't go too fast. Our goal is 50 degrees an hour, just because we can go faster than that at this stage. You could go 400 degrees an hour with a wood kiln at the beginning, but it's just not necessary. We want to stay we want this line right here. We don't want any spikes. Everything's under control. Everything's nice and easy. We got a plan. We know where we're going to end up if we stay at that rate. And so I'm stoking every 15, 20 minutes sometimes at the very beginning. Brian would usually come in at 6 and relieve me and take an 8-hour session by himself, just 50 degrees an hour. By the time we're up around 1,000, 1,500 degrees, we're stoking maybe every 8 to 10 minutes. When we're really rolling and we're above 2,000 and this thing is hot, we're stoking, it depends on where we're at and how we're calling it with the flame. It could be 3 to 5 minutes. Sometimes it's 5 to 6 minutes, but it's pretty quick. You're throwing in wood, and sometimes you can see it catching on fire as it's going through the door. I mean, it's burning quickly. And so the stoke cycle changes, but you're listening to the kiln, you're reading your cones, and you're making adjustments based on how you want that tip of that flame, how full you need to keep the front so that your cones aren't going down. There's a lot to run in one of these kilns, and that's what it makes it cool.
So do you start off with, as you're starting the fire in the first place, with like a pile of wood you get started with first, and then step out of it, and then start putting the wood into it? How's the initial?
So yes, no, absolutely not. Because if I was to get that, if I had like in the bed, if I had a pile of wood in there to, because it kind of makes sense, right? Well, let's just put this in here while it's easy. Once that got going, we would gain 300 degrees in an hour. Once that started roaring. So no, I've got a propane flame in there going, and I'll take a couple pieces of wood and just toss them in front of it. Because I'll get a jump just from a few pieces of wood.
Okay.
Because I've already got everything in that kiln, the whole mass has been heated to 350 degrees.
With
So
your
adding
propane.
with the propane.
Right.
So, I mean, that's zero as far as it's concerned now. And now I add to it,
Mhm.
adding 50 degrees to that is not hard to do
Oh.
with open flame. So it's really timid with the wood as we get started. And so that's why it's so difficult to heat up slowly with wood, because it just a tiny little campfire would put this thing up hundreds of degrees really fast.
Okay, I see that now. Okay, I was just trying to figure out how, because I guess I missed a part of the propane starting it, the
Yeah,
torch,
yeah.
getting it going.
I'll
Is
start
that-
it down
once
below
it
the
gets started, then
grate
you turn
heat.
that off and then just feed the wood.
We just kind of take over. So
Yeah.
I've got the propane going, and I'll let that get my fire started.
Right?
So I'm not having to try to get a bigger fire to get going. And so it's just, I got the torch hitting those few pieces of wood, and then I just kind of keep building it up and letting it kind of get a little bigger,
Mhm.
and just watching my digital parameter and making sure that we're not jumping too much. And, you know, if it jumps a bunch, it's kind of the average. Sometimes it'll go like this, but our average wants to stay 50 degrees an hour.
All right, thank you.
And Danny explained that the kiln is not the same temperature throughout the whole thing. We're fighting the
Yeah.
front while we're moving the back and.
Yeah, the whole time we're trying to balance the kiln as much as possible from the very beginning of the firing. But at the beginning, like, you know, we'll hit, let's say the quartz inversion is a whole nother thing. I'm not going to get into that. But it's like, so that's kind of a big number for us. And sometimes we can be a quartz inversion at the top and 300 degrees on the bottom. Quartz inversion is 1,061 degrees. Okay. So we'll hit that number up here, and we're 700 degrees cooler at the bottom. But the hotter you get, the more the radiant value of heat takes over, and so it helps to even the kiln out. Okay, and so, you know, that number gets squeezed, and so we're always looking at our top number, our bottom number, our back number, and all these different things, because we also are going to be, you know, we've had 12 down in front and like not even 6 at the back, and we got to keep that 13 up, and that's all about your stoke cycle then, not letting the flame, the kiln clear, and if there's just a lot at that point.
Does the ash build up on the brick too?
It does.
Just kind of run down.
It runs down or falls down, and so running down is good. Falling down usually isn't, because it's usually coming off in like these bits with brick with it, and it lands on your best pot every time. So it can. We're to the point we've ground the ceiling of the soda kiln a couple of times. Before this next firing, the vapor kiln needs to be ground, and probably the front third of the onigama needs to be ground as
Where is
well.
it located? I've never seen where this is.
Yeah.
Is it a secret?
It is. Yeah, right. Yeah, you gotta be in the club. No, it's in Spring Hill, Kansas, which is you know where Olathe is. Most people are familiar with Olathe. I'm 10 miles south of Olathe. And so right off 169 highway, 2 miles off 169 highway.
And now the secret is.
Secret is out.
How about a little bit of why we are the Clay family and how many it takes to fire it, and why it takes many people?
Okay, so we have fired this kiln with as few as I think 10 people in a firing. It was rough. It was. We were. You know how.
Very.
You know, if there anybody here who hasn't experienced when you're really tired and you're like, I think that's okay. And then after you're not tired anymore, it wasn't. It was, you needed to like stick it out a little longer. You don't make good decisions when you're tired. And so, you know, normally now, and that was just kind of a confluence of circumstances that created that fire where we didn't have a lot of people that could be there. I would never want to fire this with less than a dozen again. And a dozen is, to me, that's the least amount of perfect. And then, you know, we've had as much as like 25 people, and people didn't even get to do a stoking shift because there were so many people. It depends on the firing and the time of year and all that kind of stuff. And I imagine the October firing is going to be pretty full. There's going to be, I think, a lot of people in it. it's the perfect time of year to fire, actually. It's not the cold one in February, it's not the hot one in June. So it's really nice to be out there in the autumn.
How often do you do it, 4 times a year?
Three times a year is
Almost figured that out.
yeah, right. That's about as much as I feel like we can do well. It would take a monumental effort actually to go to 4.
Don't do that.
100%. Well, you could do it, but other things have to go away. And so that would be just a different thing. And right now, 3 is the most. And the last 2 years, we haven't done the June firing. The previous one, we got together and put the last skin on. And then this year, everyone was busy, didn't work out. So I imagine we'll have a June firing coming up in 2027.
So we rely on each other so much, it's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like when Kathy would pull in at 10 or 11 at night to the night shift, it's like, oh God, there's Kathy, you know, it's like, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And then they bring food.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if you bring good snacks, you can come back. Yeah. So we have what's called the card table, okay, and it's just that's what it is. And so there's always lots of cards that we're firing. But yeah, the shift cycling goes on. Leaders are on 8-hour shifts. Stokers are on 6-hour shifts, so that there's always overlap, except for every 24 hours. There's a full change of shift. But that way, the continuity carries from one shift to the next, and there isn't just fresh people that haven't been in the cycle of because even on a 6-hour shift, it takes you a couple hours to get into the rhythm of the kiln again. Sometimes you can see it on the graph when a shift change happens and it will drop a bit. Sometimes it'll go up a bit because things just happen. And you're listening to the kiln. You're watching the kiln. You got someone calling a stoking back because they're watching the flame. And these are all judgments. Okay, there isn't true empirical data deciding each time to stoke. It's a judgment of when we think we should stoke based on the information we're getting back from the kiln. And then you have a shift change out and you have to leave now. And you've invested 8 hours and it's finally going good. And now I have to give it over to my friend and trust that they are going to carry this thing that I've gotten going. And it's kind of how it feels a little bit sometimes when you got to leave a shift. And if you're coming into a shift, it's like, oh man, I hope we don't screw this up. It's going good. Man, they're doing good. And yeah.
How do different woods affect your results?
How do different woods?
Different woods.
So the pine has a lot of potassium in it. It is a lot of more of a gray kind of thing, and then like the oak is like those are the two diametrically opposed. I hear things. I don't know things about like different stuff. I got a friend who would fire in Florida where basically everything is impregnated with a little bit of salt. And he had this certain kind of wood that he liked to fire with, and he only had to fire to cone like 9.5, 10, because he was getting a slight salt residual with all of his wood as it's going in. And so his firings were different based on that wood and his climate. And so right now, with what we have available, what I can tell you is, there's a manufacturing space just 5 miles from me where I can go and get already crated up cut-offs of pine that they were thrown away already. And so I can go and get that with my truck, bring it in, and we usually use that up to about 1,800 to, we've even gotten as high as 2,000 degrees with just that. So that's what we didn't have to process that was trash being thrown away. And so we can use that up to that point. And after that, it gets a little problematic trying to get it to keep going with that. And so we start supplementing with cordwood. But the cordwood is, we're not at the stage where we can kind of determine it. And the cordwood could have sycamore in it, it could have oak, it could have walnut, it could have hickory, hedge, locust, all in one bin. And so we haven't got the science of that where we're splitting it, and like, I can see what those woods are when I look at them, but other people that are splitting and stacking, like, I just need an app, you know, so they have get better Wi-Fi and an app out there, and so there we can figure out which the wood is, and put it in its little bin. Yeah, it actually would be wonderful to be able to do that. But that might be, maybe, I could see that 5 years down the road maybe, where we're trying to get that picky. I'm still learning this kiln and how to fire the kiln, and the effects of the wood is a nuance that we haven't reached yet.
I don't know if you'd ever be able to dial it in, because an oak tree that's growing on one piece of land and an oak tree growing on another piece of land is actually gonna have different trace minerals.
There's 128 different oak trees in the United States as well. So that I've got white oak and red oak on mine. That's all. I just call them white and red. We got bur oak. We got the little tiny acorns. So that's going to be different as well. So I mean, I imagine oak is oak relative to sycamore. You know, that's going to be a big difference. So, but you know, it's like wine tasting. You know, I'm a box wine guy. Okay, I'm very shallow taste. You know, if it's sweet, I'll drink it. And so, but there's other people that they taste things in wine that I can't. And so it gets to be a bit like that with the wood also. You know,
Except the harder the wood will slow down the kiln if we put too much in.
Well, so there's that aspect as well, where like if we get a bunch of hedge and we throw a bunch of hedge in, everybody's like, oh, hedge, lots of BTUs. Well, there's a chemical process that has to happen first where that hedge has to get heated up in order to, well, the way it's heated up is to draw heat from the firebox. And so if we put a lot of really dense wood in, it'll actually cool the kiln for a while. It comes back later, but you have to have faith when that happens to know, oh, okay, I just killed 100 degrees. It took me 4 hours to make.
Or more.
And, right, exactly. And it's like, I hope that comes back. So it can be rough on you. So we'll usually have a box of hedge over here and then a couple others here, and we'll go 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, and we'll pepper it in as opposed to throwing it in. We also have done to the point where we were doing hedge a bunch in a row, getting a ton of temperature climb. We were making slag in the firebox and it was choking it off. It was actually, we had this, it was a cool slag. It was slag, really.
Like cinders.
Is all I could call it, yeah. It came out of the firebox that we didn't even discover until we were unloading the kiln and taking it to the fire. So we know not to do that as well.
So the last fire, Kathy and I were working overnight, and we were stalled out for like a long, long time.
8 hours.
Yeah. That's a long time. You've been this thing for 8 hours,
It
you're
was
getting
torture.
no response, you start panicking. Okay, so our shift is over, we leave, Danny takes over, well, we were like.
Yeah, but you
He's
change
cracking
everything.
down. So instead of pouring more wood or anything in it and no damper movement, he started putting less wood in it. And it changed everything and actually finished off the fire. So there's so many variables.
But less wood, quicker
Right,
cycles.
right.
Yeah.
Smaller wood, less wood, yeah.
But you're back.
Oh, wow, okay.
What's the volume of wood that you go through?
Including that pine that we bring in, we're anywhere between 5 to 6.5 cords of wood in 1 week. That's a lot.
What are the ridges on the outside of the kiln there? On the
That's purely aesthetic.
Decorative.
Decorative.
We gotta make it pretty.
Sound like bones.
Yeah.
We gotta make it pretty.
Yeah, well, it was, okay, so I've done a lot of building of all kinds of things, and so it's not, I'm kind of lying a little bit. So I put in some places for stopping points for when we're stuccoing so that we can get to a point, and it's better if you just follow your stucco like this, you start to get cold joints all over the place, okay? And it doesn't really go well, and you can get, the cracking is worse and all that kind of stuff. So I rolled up a bunch of chicken wire and made these places for people to come and stop to, so that we would get that point, because I know how it works, where you think you're gonna work at a certain rate and you don't. And so those were created to stop, to make to facilitate, especially people that don't know, had never held a trowel in their lives, and we're gonna be helping, and so it just helped, and then it turned into.
So it's not structural support, it's not wiring,
Absolutely
not.
No, so it's just kind of, now it's aesthetic, but it was for that reason. Yep, okay, all right.
Thank you.
Good.
All right.